Hey tubers, welcome back for another adventure. So I was up at P&T Surplus on Monday. One of my Toyotas had to go in for some of its annual checkups and so forth. And I stopped at P&T Surplus on my way home. And you know, Tim is pretty cool. He'll let you go through boxes and everything else, and this is one of the things I found. Typically something like this I give them about $1 for, and what it is an old battery charger. I would say it's probably, call it a 1965 plus or minus 5 years. It has 6 and 12 volts, so it's old enough. It's old enough to have to go to 6 volts, but it also gives you 12, and there it is. It's made in the United States, which is another reason why I really liked it. It's made in Cincinnati, Ohio, and quite honestly, it looks like it was handmade, right? You got a bottom plate, then you bolt the front and back to it, and then this piece, the big U, so to speak, yeah. Now it looks like a U. You put that right over the top, and a few rivets and so forth. Anyway, so this was probably going to go out for like transformer waste at that big 10 cents a pound, and I said, I'm going to give you $1 for it. Bring it home, and let's open it up and take a look inside. I did give it a quick smell. It doesn't smell like the transformer is burned up. It smelled like mice. Anyhow, everything smells like mice, I guess. Somebody cut the cords off of it for whatever reason. Anyway, I'm going to open it up and take a look inside. If the transformer is shot, then it's done, right? It doesn't pay to do anything with it. If it just needs a switch, I can dig up one of those. The cords I can obviously dig up. That's no big deal. Other than the case, that just leaves the diodes. So let's get in there and see what's cooking. Taking it apart is easy enough, right? You got 4 screws. Right, these go, there's 2 on the other side. I'm just going to loosen them up a little bit and take them out by hand so they don't get lost. So the cover is off, and I kind of stripped the wires back a little bit and stuck them out. Now, this wire goes directly to the transformer, and this wire kind of messes around with the switch and diodes. So from that, you can kind of figure out fairly quickly that this is where you put the 110 volts, and this is where you expect to find the 6 or 12 volts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to power it up, and let's see what comes out, or if it smokes, or what it does. Okay, what I've done is, to put power into it, I used one of those cords. I put a light on the end of it. I set it to 12 volts. And all I have to do is turn this on, and let's see what we get. Well, I don't see any smoke. It looks like the light came on. And it looks like I get high and low voltage out of it. All of that is good. Now let's see what the voltage looks like. So I clipped my meter to it and made sure these aren't shorted together. And I have it on DC 20 volts, and I'm getting, I don't know, flickering nonsensical numbers, and right there I'm on 12 volts. Flip it to 6 volts, and once again kind of nonsensical numbers. So let me try AC and we'll see what it looks like. You always disconnect the leads before you start flipping your your meter. In the old days of analog meters, when you went through off, what it would do is it would short your meter so things didn't move, and you obviously don't want to do that when you have power going through your meter. So always good to disconnect the lead. So on the AC scale, on 6 volts, I'm getting 7.7 and 11.7 on the DC scale. So what this is telling me is AC is coming out the leads and not DC, or that these diodes are shot. Now, about replacing these diodes. Obviously you're not buying these again, and they're all riveted in, so that's not trivial. So you could get in there and just replace them with standard stud diodes. But do remember that a stud diode needs a heat sink, and one side of the stud diode typically is negative. So and depending on how they have this hooked up, I haven't gone through figuring out if it's a center tap transformer and a half wave, 2 diodes, or if it's a full wave, 4 diodes, and both ends of the transformer, so to speak. There's only 2 in there, so it must be center tap with 2 diodes. But you also have to make sure that you're not hooking the diodes to the case and, you know, causing another current path. So somehow you have to put 2 diodes in here with both ends floating and a heat sink. So you got to kind of put them on standoffs. About this battery charger, what a lot of people use these for, when I was a kid, they would buy these up, and even back then they would sell fairly cheap. And they would use these to keep a battery charged all winter long, and they'd basically set it up 6 or 12 volts, typically 12 in my day. There weren't really all that many 6-volt cars left, and they set the leads to the battery, and they'd put a light bulb in series with it. Light bulb like this would be somewhere around 100 milliamps, 150 milliamps, and you can leave your car battery charged like that more or less indefinitely and not boil all the water out of it. So that's what these were handy for. I mean, modern days, you know, they look like this, right? Power on, charging, and then full charge. This charges at almost an amp, 900 milliamps. So that's what it's good for. What makes this charger not very valuable, though, is let's say you plug it in and hook it up, one of your leads is loose, you come back 12 hours later and you go, oh, the battery's dead, it didn't take a charge. Well, it was a loose lead, and given that you don't have any kind of indicator or anything here, you won't be able to determine that, right? Unless you really go through the trouble of putting an amp meter in series, you know, doing a quick check with your meter to make sure that you put an amp meter in series, or you do a quick voltage check to make sure when you put the leads on, the voltage on the battery goes up. You know, you don't know for sure you're getting a charge or not. And if you are charging, let's say you're charging at the limit of this thing, you know, you're pushing it up over its 2 amps because your battery is shorted, you also won't know until you smell this thing burning. It does have this little box in here. I assume that's a some kind of thermal circuit breaker. That's an assumption, I don't know it. So you might just hear it clicking on and off if you short the leads together, but there you are. So what am I going to do with this? For the time being, I'm just going to put it aside. Next time I go to the flea market, if I see a nice power cord for 50 cents somewhere, I'm going to buy it. If I see a set of nice leads at the flea market, or if I you know, as I'm cleaning up and so forth, I find a set of leads, I'm going to put those aside. And lastly, I'm going to look around in the Horde for some diodes to put in here, and then I have to figure out how to set them up with various insulators so that I have heat sinks on them, but I'm also able to hook to both ends, right, such that they'll breathe. So I'm going to put it back together, and we're gonna call it quits on this thing for now. I think it is a cool charger, but once again, without a meter on it, it's just, you know, it's just not very practical. It's not very worthwhile. Typically, when it comes to chargers, I normally try to find these, you know, on somebody's rug somewhere, you know, they're junk piles. I love to get them for $1. Typically, it's closer to $5 I pay for these. There's another battery charger that's been floating around. I've done repair videos on it, and it seems that if you see how bent this is, it seems that I broke that. So it's a very hot day. I'm not going to get a lot done, so I figured I'd spend a little time with the battery charger before it gets too hot outside and I have to go back in. It's one of those humid days, and right after somewhere around noon, 1 o'clock, we're supposed to see a bunch of thunderstorms. So I thought the charger was a nice quick project, and I'd jump right in on it and spend some time. The other thing is I'm touching it. I shouldn't be doing that because it is still plugged in. Anyway, folks, I hope you found this interesting, amusing. I just like stuff like this. Hopefully some of you guys do also. I want you all to keep your feet down, your heads up, and get out and enjoy each and every day. Bye now.